Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers podcast, your source for travel stories, travel destinations, and travel philosophy.
I'm Amanda.
I'm Ryan.
And we're your hosts.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the World Wanderers podcast. Today we are chatting with Uwe Allgäuer. Apologies if that pronunciation is off on the last name Uwe, but we had an amazing conversation with Uwe quite a while ago. We actually recorded our interview with him in early March while we were still in Panama. And the reason we're putting it out now as opposed to back in March is that because some of the stuff Uwe was working on was around trips for digital nomads, we were thinking it was best as the pandemic got started and all travel plans were put on hold to wait to hold off to see if we'd be able to launch it closer to a date of a trip that was going on that was unfortunately not able to happen. And so we're putting it out now because it's a really, really awesome, fun conversation that I think you guys are really going to like hearing about Uwe's story as it relates to travel and kind of creating a career as a nomad and then settling back down a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So on this episode of the podcast, we talk a little bit about Uwe's travel story, what inspired him to travel, how he ended up in Bulgaria, and we talk a little bit about the digital nomad scene in Bulgaria, how Uwe got into entrepreneurship and got inspired by the world of digital nomadism. We talk about what it's like to start a co-working space in a foreign country, as well as so many other things. This was a really inspiring episode of the show for us as digital nomads, and re-listening to it and thinking back to this conversation, it makes us excited to hopefully soon get back on the road and be able to live a nomadic life again. So if you have been missing travel as much as we have been, which I'm assuming you have been, hopefully you enjoy this episode, and hopefully after this you'll want to add Bulgaria to your travel list if it's not already there. All right, without further ado, here's Uwe. Welcome to the podcast today, Uwe. We're really excited to have you here with us.
Amanda and Ryan, so cool. I'm so excited to talk to you guys. It's really cool. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited for all the things we're going to chat about. But first question for you is, where are you joining us from today?
That's a very good question. I put one of my bases is in Bulgaria, in Bansko. I really love Bulgaria. But today, since I do business in Sofia, so I'm in the capital right now.
Amazing. Sounds awesome. Bulgaria is definitely on our list of places to visit. We're hoping this spring, maybe this summer, we'll see. We'll definitely let you know if we do make it through there. But yeah, excited to hear more about all of that. But let's back up a little bit. Can you tell us about how you first got into travel and what kind of inspired the life that you live now?
That's a very, very good question. You know, I grew up in the most western part of Austria. So I've been born in a town by the name of Feldkirch. And Feldkirch is a rather small town. It's in the Alps, in a mountainous region, so to say. So although Feldkirch is in a valley, it's called in the Rhine Valley. There's a river by the name of Rhine flowing through. And so this is where I grew up. But I always had the urge to travel. I cannot explain it. So my parents, they were not really into traveling or something. I mean, they took me out, I learned skiing and whatnot. But I had always the urge to go somewhere. It's hard to explain, but like an inner feeling that maybe like an explorer. So I always had the feeling I need to explore the world. I need to travel the world. And so I started my first travels I was 16 years old. And I traveled with friends, with a family to Africa, to Kenya, actually. And so this got me started. And in Kenya, I had one of these amazing moments where we entered, we were invited to a party, and the party was only organized and there were only black people at the party. And so we were the only white people showing up. It was so awkward. And when we entered, the whole crowd went silent. But then we were recognized by our friends, and then he came over and he greeted us and he welcomed us. And then suddenly the entire energy changed, and they were so welcoming and so open. And we had one of my most amazing parties I ever had. And this kind of, if you travel and if you meet new people and they are so genuinely friendly and they have such a big heart. So this kind of inspired me, and I want to travel and to see more of the world.
And so then as you got older, was that kind of something that was always on your radar? Did you like go to university and think like, hey, right after I'm going to start traveling?
That's a good one. So I'm for me, things they need time. So I studied later in my life. So when I went 30 or with 28 years old or so, I started to study. I I started my career as an electrical engineer. So it's like I started a completely different career. But always traveling was kind of when I had vacation, I always wanted to go and see more of the world. So Australia was on my list and the far-fetched places. Somehow I was drawn to the distance. I cannot explain it, but I think traveling is like a teacher. It's like university in itself. You learn how to open, you learn how to connect to other people. And I think this is so important. And this is one of the things which always guided me as a guiding light, so to say. And so I traveled around 80 countries now, and I learned, like the more you learn, the more you travel, the more you got to know, the more you know that actually you have seen only bits and pieces of this planet, which is kind of sad, but also it pushes me, to see more stuff. And also I have been lots of land traveling, and then I got into sailing, and then this opened up a completely new chapter in my life, because I realized, like 1/3 of this earth, is only land, and 2/3 are water. So when you visit lots of countries, you realize suddenly you only see the land part of it, but you never see the sea. So, and then traveling by boat, via sailboat, when the only thing which propels you is the wind, and you use the wind to get to places. This opened up a completely new chapter, and now I enjoy also the sea and traveling via boat.
Yeah. There's so much you never get to see, especially if you only stick to like you stick to the land and you stick to like the common route versus exploring. But I'm curious, how did you go from getting started in a career in electrical engineering and then making that transition like towards entrepreneurial stuff and towards being based in Bulgaria? How did that all come about?
That's I think, like this is a lifelong story. So I could not keep a job longer for 2 years. Somehow I was like, as soon as I know bits and pieces of a certain job, of a certain kind of topic, then it gets boring to me. I need to occupy myself with something new. But my parents, they haven't been entrepreneurs at all. So the most part of my life, I worked for companies. And so I somehow aspired a company career, which then, like at some point I asked myself the question, whom are you doing this for? Whom, like what drives you to do this? And I didn't really had an answer to that. And this was in 2009 or so. And you must understand, maybe I have to explain a little bit. I worked as a development aid worker in Zimbabwe. This was Zimbabwe, the southern region of Africa. And so in this working there, I wanted to work overseas to learn a language better, and to just get some international experience working overseas. And at that time, 2006, 2005, when I was looking for jobs overseas, there was no Monster or job search online. The internet was barely used as it is used today. So I had to make it happen somehow. And the only job I found which was interesting enough to get me going was this development aid worker position in Zimbabwe, and leading an IT project in a very rural space, in a very rural part of Zimbabwe. That place was called Binga, close to the Lake Kariba. And somehow this unrooted me, so to say. It opened a new travel bug, or somehow I had a new travel bug. And also this experience there really grounded me in a way. So I saw all these things happening in Zimbabwe, like people suffering a lot, and still they have this happiness inside them. So although they face very difficult times, they still preserve this inner happiness. And this somehow kept me, I don't know, it opened a very new chapter in my life. And so I strived to do things differently, and to think about how I do things and what I think and why I think the way I think. So it has a lot to do with personal development as well. So in 2008, I got a new corporate job, which was really amazing. I got paid very well. I flew the entire world. I was in charge for the service of a product. And so I traveled a lot, and somehow it was an amazing job. But 4 years later, I could stick 4 years with that job, which was kind of for me exceptional. But also it made me sad, because I had the feeling I'm working for somebody that he or this group gets richer, but me, I had the feeling I get poorer. I mean, although I earned a lot, obviously I had a great job, it was amazing, but like internally, emotionally, I had the feeling I get poorer and I need to change something. And then I got more into sailing. And so I saw a sailing opportunity to cross the Indian Ocean from the Maldives, to sail from Maldives to Phuket. And that was this was initiated by a project by the name of Cowboat. And I think Cowboat never took really off, but this was the first time I get to know digital nomads. There on the boat, on this sailboat, there were 9 people, and most of them have been digital nomads. And I didn't know digital nomads beforehand. So when this happened, I was Googling, what is a digital nomad? I had no idea. And then somehow I thought, this is a hype. Digital nomads, that's a hype. It's not real. It's not, these people, they have a dream, and they will, at some point, they will start working again. And in a way, I couldn't imagine. But then I got to know these amazing people on this sailboat, and we sailed for 18 days to cross the Bengal Sea. And within these 18 days, when you sail 24 hours in an open ocean where you cannot see land, you get to know people very well. So you get very close to each other. And on a sailboat, it can be very, very difficult. Although it was a rather big sailboat, 25 meters long, 25 meters catamaran, the space is very tight. So, and longer, if you sail longer for 1 week, it's actually quite difficult to get on with people. So for 1 week, you can hide, so to say. But, like if you sail 10 days or more, sometimes people don't go well with each other anymore. Maybe the situation turns sour. But in our case, these amazing people, they made it happen that 18 days we had a blast. Every day was a blast. And for me, when I got to know the people better, I understood the way how they think and how they live. And working in a corporate job, often it is like in a hamster wheel. So you keep the wheel turning and you're running. The carrot is always in front of your face, but you can never reach it. And so, but then the digital nomads, they taught me that they live a lifestyle, and they have a lifestyle they like, rather than they are in this hamster wheel and aiming for the next better job, for the next better salary, or for the next better car, or for a bigger house, or whatnot. They emphasize the idea of the lifestyle rather than the monetary or financial part of a job. And this made me think. It made me think that how can I apply this way of thinking? How can I apply this concept to my life situation? And one of my things I do is, and I always did, since 20 years, I'm a real estate manager. And so searched for a way how to apply the concept to my business. How can I run my business remotely? What can I do to make this happen? And in the beginning, I thought this is not possible. I thought, people would think I'm crazy or so. But then I found a way how to apply the concept to my situation and to make it happen for me. And this made it possible for me to run the business remotely. And I'm really glad that happened.
Yeah, wow. What an incredible journey, kind of, going through travel and corporate work and into digital nomad life. And one of the things I'm curious about is you have 3 businesses that I know of, probably more than that as well. I'm curious, I guess which one came first, and kind of what has it been like creating these businesses that help nomadic people like Ryan and I?
Yeah, well, I think I have the shiny object syndrome. So as many entrepreneurs have, unfortunately, I see a shiny object and then I strive after it. So for me, the real estate, I'm a real estate manager, so I'm renting out flats. And this was the first thing. So this always was on my side, but I never saw it as a business in a way. Because I inherited this from my parents, and they never thought of it as a business. So I had to turn this into a business, into a real business, and so that it really can support me. And then I learned how to apply a certain structure so I can do it remotely. And then I got to know digital nomads, I got to know entrepreneurs, I got to know this group of people, I found, hey, there is more things I can do. And, there is this saying that you're the average of the 5 closest people you're surrounded with. And I totally agree to that. It's totally true for me. Maybe not for everybody, but for me, it's totally true. And so, because let's say from the friends of my youth, when I came up with an idea and I shared it with them, they said, "Nah, Uwe, you are crazy. This is a strange idea or something." It turned me down in a way. So, but sharing the same or similar ideas to the crowd I'm now surrounded with is like, they say, "Hey, Uwe, that's a great idea. Maybe you should think more into this, or more see it from that angle and stuff." So it made me think, oh, actually, I can do this and that. And so I was approached by other people to do a project with them and to start something new. And so I was so intrigued that I found my tribe. So I was traveling all these places, where the location independent people hang out, right? So Chiang Mai, for instance, is one of them, or Bali is another one. So I traveled these places, but I quickly found out that this traveling is not really don't get me wrong, I like to travel, but traveling without an ending or living out of the luggage all the time, this is not mine. I cannot do this. So I got quickly bored with that. So then I thought, how can I make this happen, that I'm part of this tribe, but traveling less? And during this sailing trip, I explained to you before, going from the Maldives to Phuket, some of them, they started to think of opening a co-living space. So this led then further to opening a co-working space. And so I opened the co-working space together with Matthias, I co-founded it with Matthias in Bansko in Bulgaria. And Bansko is actually a skiing area. So it's the opposite of what you can find in Bali or Chiang Mai. And so this was then the idea, to invite people to me rather than I travel with them or I follow them. So that was the initial idea which inspired me to open a co-working space.
Oh, that's cool. And how did you settle on Bulgaria and Bansko?
That was a coincidence, so to say. I'm from Austria, and Matthias, he used to live in Salzburg. So we looked for places around Austria, like rural places. We were always into rural places. So I guess we are not city slickers. I think we like the nature more or prefer the nature more than other places. So we were always looking at rural places. But how can I say, like sometimes you have an idea, but it's just not the right time or it's just not the right place. So we just kept going, and we were sure that this project, we wanted to do it. But in Austria, it just didn't happen. Things didn't fall in place, and it just didn't happen. There were some obstacles. We couldn't get the contract with the landlord, and so on and so forth. Until a friend of ours who said, Jürgen, it was actually Jürgen, he said, why don't you come to Bulgaria? He said this which it's the normal thing to do or something. And Matthias and I, we both had no idea about Bulgaria, to be honest with you. So neither of us have been to Bulgaria beforehand. So we quickly set up a delegation of 6 people. We invited friends, hey, come with us. Let's check this place out. Let's see what's going on there. And we researched beforehand, of course, and we saw, there's the Black Sea. So there's possibilities that Bulgaria is a rather small country, but it offers so many different things, like places close to the sea, but also skiing areas, mountainous areas like Bansko. Bansko, the mountain in Bansko is called Pirin, the Pirin mountain, and the Pirin is also a national park. And we saw this sticking out somehow, and we were intrigued by the idea of having a co-working space in the mountains or a co-living space in the mountains, because there is not many places you can actually co-work in the mountains. And so we thought, okay, let's give it a try. So we went there, we checked it out, and we immediately fell in love with it. Everybody who has been in Bansko probably can tell you that it has this special magic. It's a place where, and things just fell into place. We were just going with the flow, and by the end, we loved it, and we said immediately yes. I think it took us a week, and then we said, okay, let's do this. And yeah, this is the beginning.
That's cool. I think it's something that's like fascinating too. It's actually an idea Amanda and I have played with a bit of the idea of just finding somewhere really cool and interesting and trying to create something that's like a hub for people there. What has the experience been like of okay, you guys are okay, we want to plant our flag in Bansko, Bulgaria, and create a space where nomads can come and work. And I know Bulgaria is kind of gaining steam as a place where digital nomads go and base themselves. But what was that process like in terms of getting started? Was it hard to fill the co-working space up? Was that demand there immediately?
That's an excellent question, Ryan, actually. The thing is, there is different parts which have to come together, okay? So in our case, it was like neither of us had the intention to do this alone. We always had the idea of doing this together with more people, not the 2 of us, but with all our friends, because we all love traveling, we all love co-working, we all love to be at a cool place which suits us. In our case, the people, this part, the partners, we have been sure we want to do this together. The thing which was the question mark, so to say, was where we do it and how we do it. And then seeing this place, seeing Bansko, it just spoke to us. It just resonated with us in a way that we said, okay, we were sure we want to do it. And then we found the place, and then the things came together at the right time, at the right moment. And also our community manager, we had because Matthias and I, we wanted to focus more on the fun part and not so much on the operational part. So we wanted to have somebody who supported us. So we employed a community manager, and it was Irina. She was living in Sofia before, but her grandparents, they grew up in Bansko. So she was very close to Bansko, and she just moved there a couple of months before, and then she saw that the co-working space will open the doors, and she immediately get in contact with us. So things just fell in place, and it was very easy for us to say yes, so to say. But the hard part of it is that we were talking to other managers and owners of co-working spaces in Sofia, in the capital city of Bulgaria, and they all looked at us and they thought we are nuts. They thought they thought these guys, they are nuts, opening a co-working space in Bansko. Nobody would do that, right? And we were like, okay, but we are doing this because we think it is the right way to do. And Bansko was not on the map, not at all. So 4 years ago, nobody knew about Bansko. So we knew immediately that we have to market the place. We have to talk about Bansko rather than about our co-working space. But, like Bansko is amazing, and it also has a co-working space. And Matthias is very good with marketing. So both of us, we had kind of a big network of friends. So it was easy for us to say, hey, come on over, visit us here in Bansko. It's a nice place, hang out with us, work together with us, and we find a way to have a good time and enjoy. And so, yeah. And now Bansko is a place we have had 120 people in summer visiting us. Currently we have 70 people, and the Nomad Fest is in June. So things are really happening, and Bansko is now on the map. It's a nomad hub actually. So I think there is around 300 nomads in Bansko right now. So it really grew to something.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. One thing that I'm curious about kind of as a fellow nomad who has a couple different projects on the go is how do you kind of manage it all while still having, kind of that enjoyment with the travels that you're doing?
That's a very good question. Initially, I always said, after when I ended the career in my last job, in my last corporate job, I was like, I want to work less, not more. And unfortunately, the opposite happened. So it's like I pulled off simultaneously some projects, and then I found myself, I'm very occupied now. And so I think for me, especially when I'm traveling, I find it very difficult to balance this out, and I'm very curious how other people do that. And also, I'm looking forward to get some input there. But for me, the co-working space, I did run it for 3.5 years now. And I decided I want to give my parts away. So I sold most of my shares. So I don't run it actively anymore. So I'm rather a member now. I'm rather a guest now than managing the co-working space. It was just too much work and too much hassle. So I'm very happy that I could leave that to Matthias, who is really doing a great job now, and he's happy to run that for himself. So because I realized the co-working space, I mean, in the beginning, we were kind of blue-eyed, don't get me wrong. So we thought, okay, co-working space, how complicated can that be, right? Wi-Fi, a table, and a chair. So, but it turned out over time that it's more complicated than that. And it's also lots of fun. So during this time, we had so much fun, opening the co-working space, getting to know all these amazing people, hearing these amazing stories. And it opened up, it was also very inspiring. So it opened up new possibilities and very serendipitous. So we got to, it just opened up a new world, so to say. But then managing a co-working space is really hard work. That's it takes a lot of you. And also it kept my mind constantly going, how can I improve this? How can I improve that? How can we do this better? And so on and so forth. So I was very occupied with the co-working space. And then I decided for myself, I want to give this away. Nevertheless, I want to be part of the co-working scene. I love co-working. I think co-working is one of the most amazing things, one of the most amazing, how would you call it, like things that happen right now. It gives people the chance to work remotely and to get to know people. And I traveled a lot of times. I traveled much. And so I learned it's great if you can land somewhere, if you can go somewhere and you immediately feel connected to other people. It gives you this instant, I would call it family feeling, where when you arrive home, you're home. And this is what Bansko feels like to me and also to many other people. So the biggest compliment I got, or which for me is the biggest compliment, is that people say, hey, Uwe, this place is a place where I can be myself. And I think this is the places we're actually looking for. Maybe we cannot pronounce it out loud. But when we are at such a place, maybe we don't even have the awareness, but then we feel home and we say, this is our place where we want to be.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing all that background. It's really fascinating to hear, and definitely something that I think that, especially that last point of like finding somewhere that feels like home, is something that can be challenging. I know it's something, there's like this life of like traveling all the time is something that is like so exciting and so appealing, and has so many like amazing parts about it, but it does like at certain points get lonely. And it's really awesome that there are people out there looking to kind of create these experiences, create these places that can help nomads find balance in their life and kind of meet those other needs for connection that are somewhat harder to meet. So thank you for all the work you do. And if people want to go find out more, we'll definitely include links to Wild Nomad Safari, to the sailing retreat, and to Co-working Bansko. But where should people go to find out more about you?
At nomadsailingretreat.com, you can find more about sailing. At wildnomadsafari.com, you can find out more about the safaris. And there is links to get in contact with me. Also, if you look for business as nomads, we are always looking for new opportunities or how to cut down costs for our businesses. I help people to incorporate and relocate to Bulgaria. Bulgaria has a 10% flat income tax. So mystartbulgaria.com is also a place where I can be found.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. I feel like we could, keep you here for the next couple of hours, just picking your brain on all this good stuff. But we really appreciate your time and just, chatting with us this morning / this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Amanda and Ryan. Thank you so much for having me, for the possibility to share my story. It was really my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Uwe. To find more information, relevant links, and photos talked about in this week's episode, check out theworldwanderers.com.
If you have a question, comment, or feedback, send us an email at info@theworldwanderers.com. Join our community on Facebook at The World Wanderers or on Twitter at World Wanderers 1. As always, thanks so much for listening.
Have a great day.
Bye.